So, I recently had the pleasure of attending Decorex 2024 Joburg at the Sandton Convention Centre. Let's have a look. So, for those that don't know, let's start off with the obvious question. What is Decorex? Decorex is essentially a design and interior decoration show that aims to connect consumers, designers, and professionals in the interior decoration space. There's a showcase of trends, concepts, new designs, and designers that ultimately seek to make a difference in the design space. And with that, let's kick it off with the Renovate and Build section. Now, one of the first things that caught my eye was a focus on sustainability. The use of recycled and eco-friendly materials was front and center. We saw quite a couple of products promoting reusing things and materials that were sustainable, and you got a sense, or you were able to see products that were focused on improving your home, improving energy efficiency. There were vendors that were pushing solar panels and renewable energy sources that you can use within your home. They were vendors that were pushing products like windows and panels that would retain heat and energy in the winter and then help cool down your house in the summer, which would lead to you using sort of less energy in the home to heat up your space. There were a few that I think stood out for me. And I visited those stands and interacted quite a bit more than with the others. Others I just passed through, and with some others I actually went in to find out about the product because it's something that I am somewhat interested in. So for an example, there was one, I think it was called mixed cement, because I've been looking into a product like that. You know, it could be called micro cement, could be called screed. Depending on who you're talking to, you'll be able to figure out what it is. But it's essentially something that a thin layer that gets put onto. You know what? Have a look. Fired Earth actually had something like a DIY studio at the back where they allowed you to sort of mix your own paint color and get to take that home. They gave you nice aprons and talked you through the whole process. So it was just quite something interactive and fun. Speaking of paint, there was another one that allowed you to mix paint but digitally, and they also sort of helped you choose paint colors based off of personality. So that was another interesting experience for me. I still think it has a long way to go, but interesting nonetheless. Another one that I particularly liked was Icon. I think it was called Icon. Had this big giant doors, and with me, again, for someone who's looking to build something, those types of things are really interesting because you get to see, you know, there's motorized doors, there's manual doors, and big windows, you know, and you get to see them and get to experience them in a smaller setting in a controlled environment. It was quite interesting as well. Private Property, which is also one of the partners with Decorex, also had sort of like a smart home setup in the middle of the floor where you could go experience particular things, certain things that they were trying to showcase, and it was also quite interesting for me. Speaking of smart homes, one of the things that I was able to experience for the first time actually was the different types of Ring devices, and that pretty much allowed me to see how the smart home works from the security side of things, because in as much as you see the Ring camera on YouTube and other places, it's an interesting thing experiencing it in person. So that was quite nice as well.
Well, depending on the notifications.
There were a couple of other stores that I visited in this floor. They had some with tiles, some with LED lighting. There were a couple with, you know, just wall decor and cladding and different textured types of paint, whereas something that gave you sort of like a wallpaper design, but that's actually painted on. And actually one product which I took an interest in was also Cool Pilot, which is essentially an attachment for your creepy crawly and to avoid it getting tangled up and whatnot. So that's actually something, if you do have a pool, something nice to look at. And I mean, companies like Green Sun also had solar systems there for people to see in the flesh, and in terms of how quiet some of these things are, because one of the disadvantages of some of these inverters is that you can hear them from 15 rooms away. So it was actually nice having to see that and experience a different type of product. And I think some of these are locally made. I could be wrong, but yeah. And there were some that were showing some elements like doors and double glazed windows and whatnot, and these really stood out from a security perspective as well, because they had, instead of normally what we have, which is one lock, they had like 3-4 locks on the doors. So even if someone was trying to break in, you wouldn't exactly be able to see where the lock is for them to tamper with it. So that was quite interesting. And overall, the build and renovate floor was materials for the floor, for the walls, for the other stuff, that other miscellaneous things that you have in the house. Blinds, shutters, doors, wall cladding, those kind of things. And these were mainly for like the bigger physical environment of the house. The kitchen and bathroom section of the Decorex also didn't disappoint, because as you walked in, there were a couple of exhibitions there that I quite liked. In fact, a lot of them gave some good effort, but they were some obvious standouts. And my personal favorite, and I suspect a lot of people's personal favorite as well, was what I consider to be the showpiece of the floor, which is the Numa stand. And because they had a very elegant design, I mean, I think I walked through that and I enjoyed pretty much touching every surface and exploring what it had to offer. And yeah, I think overall it was a great showpiece. Shout out to the set designers that picked it to be there, because it was good, it was nice. Not too far from that though, one of the first sponsors of the event, you had Samsung Bespoke Home, and they had a range of their stuff, from the new phones, fridges, TVs, all these new gadgets that they had. And they had a couple of other things for the home as well, including speakers and this and that, and a lot of AI technology and the things that they're bringing forward this year. So, and what was great about that is they allow people to sort of interact with them at any level, and which was great, especially from a main sponsor, from one of the main sponsors of the event. Another one which stood out to me personally, because I was in the market for particular things, was Unipanels, and this for me stood out because it was the first time I came across kitchen doors and cabinet materials or panels that were a little bit more unique, and that helped me sort of reimagine the possibilities of what could be in terms of designing a kitchen or bathroom, or even living room furniture out of their materials, because some were made out of metal, some were made out of composite materials, some were plastic, and some were even glass. So, and all of that was materials that you could easily order from them. So for me, that is one of the ones that stood out, and I did spend an unhealthy amount of time at their stand, because come on, this was a new thing for me, and I felt like a kid in a toy store. There was a couple private show houses that were offering kitchen designs, and they're at different price points as well, and that obviously influences the different materials. As you can see, there were, I'll put them on the screen now, but there were a couple that really tried to emphasize that kitchens don't have to be boring, kitchens don't have to be all the same and look like your neighbors. You can literally go to town in terms of how you design it, and the more creative the company, the more you're in good hands. What Samsung also had was sort of like a cooking studio. On one end they're sort of selling you the stuff, and on the other hand they had like a makeshift kitchen sort of environment where you had a couple of celebrity chefs and this and that were cooking stuff for the people and showing just how to use either the stoves or other cooking appliances from them.
Hi, how's it? And yourself?
One other thing that the floor did have was a lot of appliances and appliance brands that were there, as well as appliance salesmen, or rather shops that sell appliances, particularly the high-end stores. And they had quite a couple, I must say, of options that they were offering in terms of products. Some products I did know about, some I had not seen, but this was also a chance for me to sort of experience the new offerings, particularly one which I feel that were curated for the show. And yeah, from the bathroom side, I think the one that stood out the most was something like probably lifestyle ceramics, because they bringing a new flair in terms of most bathrooms. If you go into the average South African home, in a bathroom you will get something with a white porcelain, different design, but basically it will be that. And they had quite a range of different things that they offer that really make bathrooms stand out and want you to be in there more. And there was a couple of other bespoke design houses that offered a little bit more unique tasted things in terms of design, based off of what you want. And the range, I think, helps, because also you don't want to have the same design as everybody else, because everyone has unique tastes, and what I find attractive might not be attractive for you. So it did give me some inspiration for my next project to know that, okay, fine, there's a couple of things that I'd like to change, and knowing what I know now, I have a couple more options that I knew about than before, and that pretty much allows me to be a little bit just a smidge more creative. I think one of the interesting ones was the third floor, because what it was called the 100% design exhibit, which is part of Decorex but also has its own main focus, where this also covers not just interior design stuff, but covers art, covers fashion, covers the design landscape and industry in general in the South African context, which was quite interesting. But as the name suggests, it is focused 100% on South African designers, South African made products, etc., and art and art galleries. For example, as you walked in, one of the first things that you saw, which was a bright color blue, was the Dear exhibit, and it was quite a different exhibit in terms of, it wasn't just pieces that you hang on the wall, but it had people integrated into the whole exhibit as well. So is something again new for me. Also, oh yeah, there was an exhibit that I saw which was solely dedicated to design of the year. I presume there is an award that goes out every year to honor the design of the year, whoever's picked. However, I think, and in this case, it's Tristan Duplessis, and I got a little bit, taste and feel of the whole thing, just to interact with it a bit, see through their lens, or feel it through their lens, and try to experience it a bit based off of what they wanted to pull off. And it was quite nice, I think. On the floor as well, you had Belcotex, which I primarily know for their carpets and stuff, but what they also had was their history, that they had this nice exhibit where you could see what Belcotex is and where it comes from, what it encompasses, how they make their products, what they, the kind of materials that they use, and a couple of yarns here and there. So, and it was quite a bit. They gave a few freebies as well, some sweets here and there. So the experience all in all was, just a good discovery, I must say. The big thing about this floor from my perspective is that it was a lot more chatty than all the other floors. So what you had here, like I said, was a bunch of designers and artists, a lot of young and emerging artists and designers that were eager, to sort of interact with you. And there were some that were designing their products, their furniture products. I remember at the Maxhosa stand, there was a couple of products that they were introducing, the tile range that they have, and the furniture stuff that they're looking to get into, which they were sort of discovering and proofing the concept to see in terms of what's comfortable, what people would like and whatnot. So that was quite interesting because, like I said, it is an area where it gives young designers or up-and-coming designers and as a platform to sort of interact with both customers and peers at an equal footing. Now, one of the more informative exhibits, I must say, was the Future Talk stand, which held a multitude of interactions with industry leaders and teachers, and just, to interact with. They had a bunch of topics with which they covered. I have a few which I attended, and I have a clip here and there of some of the topics that were covered, but overall it was aimed at, just getting people comfortable in the design space, even when they're new.
So if you know me well enough, I'm pretty sure you're already tired of me saying this to you individually, but time is the one thing that we just don't get back. So thank you for sharing your time with me at this point in time.
I did take a 5-minute relaxation at the B&O stand. I did like the speakers. I really like the speakers. I think it would fit well. Sound quality is good too, by the way. Floors in particular, I had a chance to also interact with Ochi Floors and just see what they have, and their products were quite nice. They have a range, not just wood colors, but wood patterns and different sizes as well. So if you do want to get wooden flooring, you check out Ochi. Oh, with this floor, one of the things that actually did stand out was two of the main sponsors, Plascon and Lexus, were somewhat exhibiting on these floors. Lexus had, for example, 4 pods that were inspired by some of their cars, and each designer, from what I understand after talking to them, had a chance to drive around in one of the cars and take inspiration from those cars and come up with a pod design idea that sort of went well with how they felt about the specific car that they drove, and which was, I think, a good experience, because sometimes, some of these cars we never really get a chance to drive. And I did have a chance to interact with some of them. Of the 4 designer ones, the Lexus ones were Ana Carrera, Mozo Designs, Planet, and Mink Interiors. And the one that I think I particularly resonated with was Mink Interiors, and I took a little time out to sort of chat with the designer, just understand her work process, because that sort of thing, that sort of concept she had there really stood out for me. But then
that's part of the art.
There was one, for example, Ukiyo Art. I think the lady there has a studio based in Cape Town. I speak under correction, but it was one of the ones that the art pieces were intriguing for me, and I did obviously, liking the pieces, gave myself time to engage and indulge, because it's not every day that you get to speak to an artist who created the works, about the works, and have a robust debate about it. So yeah, I had a little bit of a chat with her just to sort of discover what her process was, what she sees, what I see, and then just a fun conversation.
Somebody said a flying ram, head, swirly horns.
Plascon as well, like I said, also had their pods up here. On top of sponsoring most of the paint throughout for the event, they also had pods which each designer, I think, had to pick a paint color that they would sort of focus on and use in their designs. And with the Plascon ones, I think particularly 2 stood out for me. The Nisa Wilcox one, or Willocks, that one. I'll put the name up there because otherwise I'm going to kill it. And Ndibali Interiors, which did something that I think a lot of other interior designers should be doing at these shows, is that giving people a chance to sort of design what they want, and in more detail to sort of give an interactive service where you might actually find customers. I have something coming. Watch. Just watch. There was also interesting pieces that I came across that I particularly resonated with, like this world clock concept, where rather than having a digital watch or an analog one, you had something that would just tell you in words that the time is now this or that. And I like that. You know, it's unique, it's different. Obviously, it serves a very trivial purpose of telling the time, but it does it in its own flair. And this is something that, in terms of if anyone wants to gift me nice things, yeah. And overall, I enjoyed the Decorex Expo. It exposed me to a lot of new things, new design concept, new artists as well, and really made me kind of go back to the drawing board with some of the projects I'm doing or thinking of doing, to see what I can improve, what I can change, where I can sort of do a little bit of course correction and make things better. If you're in the market, if you've just built a new house or you want to design a new house, you want to just change your space a bit, I would suggest going to the Decorex and just seeing what they have to offer and seeing some of the things that you may not have thought of, both in terms of look and feel and as well as functionality as well, because also it doesn't help if things just look great if they don't work great for your particular context. Being in that space, you find yourself amongst like-minded people, and it does help. Now, like I said, the 2025 Decorex will be held between 5 and 8 June and 24 to 27 July for the Cape Town and Joburg shows respectively. So if you are in the midst of a project, just wait a few months, nyana, get to those shows, see what's new, see what's better, see what's trending, and see how you can make the best of your own space. And hopefully we'll get to see you at the next Decorex event. Now, if you will excuse me, I have a date to get to. I'm going for a run. Why you dressed? Why is he dressed like that? Mbulele. Ha ha ha. Someone answer it there, above. Yo, hi, 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 hi.